I mentioned earlier this week that the Gospel of Luke is probably my favorite gospel, and part of it is because of some of the magnificent parables that Jesus tells. And today I'm going to be sharing from chapter 15, which contains three parables in succession. And they're all parables that are prompted by the tax collectors and sinners who are coming to be near Jesus, and the Pharisees and the scribes grumbling, saying, "This fellow welcomes sinners and eats with them." Oh, the horror. It's one of the sad things about the church, that the idea that we might try to welcome people who are sinners or eat with them or befriend them, to be with people who are less than perfect, whatever that means from a person's Christian worldview. I've had people storm out of this church or leave church and say they're never coming back because in their minds we weren't being holy enough or pure enough or good enough. And honestly, the same criticism was levied at Jesus. He welcomed sinners and he ate with them. He built relationships with people who were hurting and broken and needy. It's what we're actually supposed to do. And in chapter 15, the three parables are about the shepherd with a lost sheep, a woman with a lost coin, and a father with not one prodigal son, but two lost sons. And what's interesting is how the numerical progression changes in the three parables. In the first one, the shepherd has 100 sheep. And Jesus says, if one goes astray, well, 1 out of 100, you might think, well, how big a loss is that really? But the shepherd goes and looks for that sheep until he finds it, and then comes back and says, "Rejoice, for I found the sheep that was lost." In the next, the woman has only 10 coins. So now the lost coin is more valuable. It's not 1/100th of what she has, it's 1/10. And then in the final parable, the father with 2 sons, obviously people are more valuable than coins or sheep, and there's only 2 of them. So for one to leave, the loss of that relationship is far, far greater than in the previous 2. And the loving, gracious Father, which is how we should think of this parable, as the loving Father, not as the parable of the prodigal son. The 2 sons both are distant from him in different ways. One has very cruelly asked for the share of the inheritance that will fall to him, which is the equivalent of saying to the father, "I wish you were dead because I value the money that I can get from you more than I value you or our relationship." And that's why Jesus' first audience, they would have expected the father to kick the son. Well, I won't tell you where he would have kicked him, but he would have kicked him out of the house, and he would have reprimanded him and disciplined him very strongly. And it is shocking grace that son is welcomed back with a robe and sandals and a ring on his finger to show that he's not a slave, but with all these things that he is a son. And of course the older son, who's all upset that, well, I've been here the whole time and you never gave me a calf so I could celebrate with my friends. Well, the whiny older brother makes it clear that he may have physically been present, but his heart was also not right with the father. And the father wants to be in relationship with both. And the verse of the day which concludes the chapter is, "But we had to celebrate and rejoice because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found." And whenever someone who is lost is found, when someone who is dead is made alive in Christ, that is cause for rejoicing. But those things usually don't happen if we don't first welcome sinners and eat with them and build relationships with them.